you aware of terror at the time you were giving this role? Were you aware that terror was going on throughout the nation?
Oh, no, of course not. We did Dracula, and it seemed to me during Dracula I had high hopes that people would react as they do in a movie of that kind, and I don't know that they did, particularly. And so I've given up. One doesn't believe in the radio audience much. You don't know whether they're listening or not. You have no idea how many people are listening or what they're thinking. I had every hope that the people would be excited as they would be at a melodrama.
On October 30th, 1938, Orson Welles put on an infamous performance, The War of the Worlds. Presented as a real-world radio broadcast, the adaptation of H.G. Wells' novel of the same name, Mercury Theater on Air told the story about aliens invading New Jersey. This led Wells to encounter numerous reports of mass stampedes and suicides. "If I'd planned to wreck my career," Wells said, "I couldn't have gone about it better." Though not exactly able to be recreated today due to the easily accessible Google, Orson Welles' performance encompassed a unique storytelling genre that had yet to be named: Unfiction. Use of Unfiction as an umbrella name for media in the field catches anything playing by the code of TINAG, this is not a game, presentation. Alternate reality games, interactive projects, and immersive narratives all fall under the idea of playing pretend en masse as a storytelling method, and can accurately be labeled unfiction, giving someone who knows the term a sense of what they may find without inaccurately expecting an ARG or wrongly categorizing a project as one. Often, unfiction overlaps with analog horror and found footage storytelling, but it always comes down to one thing: the story is presented as true. It's not fiction. It's unfiction. Unfiction has roots dating back to the 1700s, with epistolary novels like Dangerous Liaisons, Frankenstein, and Dracula, stories told through diary entries, letters, and newspaper clippings. But with the emergence of the internet, paper documents weren't going to cut it anymore. Blog forums, video sharing, and the eventual rise of social media would become the modern epistolary format. The first mainstream example that comes to mind, and possibly one of the most famous works of unfiction, is the Blair Witch Project. The movie was the brainchild of Daniel Myrick and Eduardo Sanchez, who both were more afraid of documentaries than horror movies. This made them think, what if a movie was discovered as if it had already happened? What if you had no idea what happened? What if it were real? They went about making the movie, filming with unknown actors over a period of only 8 days, hoping that it might be picked up by cable TV. But in addition to a killer movie, co-director Sanchez also built a website that marketed it as if it were a true story. There were pages filled with false police reports, newsreels, and missing persons posters. They even floated a fake documentary on the Sci-Fi Channel in a few days before the release of the movie, and refused to let actors do any press to really sell the idea that the characters in the narrative had died. I personally wasn't alive the year the film was released, but based on opinions from around the internet, there were more than a few people who saw the film and the website and believed it. Mike Holtz recounts the experience seeing a trailer for the Blair Witch Project for the first time. "I was 14 years old. I flipped on the cable TV, not even bothering to find a channel. Then I hear blood-curdling screams, and it finally catches my attention. The TV program explained, in that haunting, Dateline-type voiceover, that we were currently watching real footage that had been found in the woods where 3 students had vanished looking for a goddamn witch. I started up the computer and popped in something along the lines of www.blairwitchproject.com, and boom, that haunting stickman was front and center. The website told the awesome lie as well. It played the whole thing as though it was an actual missing persons case. We lived in an age of unsolved mysteries because the internet was in its infancy. Today, I would just whip out my phone and Google it and understand the situation. Instead, what I saw scared the living shit out of me, the same way I would imagine witnessing a murder in the middle of the woods would. It was pure, unadulterated fear." In hindsight, Holtz calls it what I believe to be the greatest movie marketing stunt of all time. And this stunt worked. The Blair Witch Project went on to be the 10th highest grossing film in the US the year it was released, earning over 4,000 times its $60,000 budget. Not only was it shown you could make an excellent film for a shockingly small amount of money, a storyteller could use the internet and even other media outlets to expand a story well beyond the boundaries of the movie theater and create extremely exciting buzz. But the Blair Witch Project wasn't the only fictional website. In the March of 2001, the earliest creepypasta emerged: Ted's Caving Page. A creepypasta, according to dictionary.com, is not in fact creepy Italian food, but rather a genre of user-generated paranormal and scary stories distributed over internet forums. Famously, there is Slenderman, as well as Jeff the Killer, but Ted the Caver is allegedly the first of the creepypasta genre. Though, some believe that the "share this email or you'll die" phenomenon of the 1990s is the real first emergence of creepypasta. I'll leave that for you to decide. Hosted on an Angel Fire website that is still active today and full of advertisements, Ted the Caver is the story of a man exploring a cave that he found, outfitted with pictures and artwork drawn by the titular man himself. It is formatted with journal entries in gray and future notes in blue. I will divide the text into two colors for the sake of clarity. The gray text is taken directly from my caving journal. The italicized blue text is my comment as I reflect on the experience. I will do my best to convey the thoughts and feelings I had during the entire event. I will not use the names of the other individuals involved. I will include the entire relevant text of my journal. There are, of course, plenty of sounds coming from the cave which Ted can explain away due to proximity to a highway and other natural phenomena, but since there is a flow of air coming from the small hole, it blows, so therefore it goes. And Ted, with the help of his friend B, go about trying to enter the cave. They continue to hear strange noises. The breeze from the hole stops and starts again, which is pretty spooky. But they continue to work on it, interspersed with some notes from future Ted. Like, I do recall thinking that it would be nice to get in and see how the mechanics of the cave worked, where the wind was coming from, what was making that noise, etc. Now, weeks later, I think of my ignorance and naivete and shiver. On page 10, we are greeted with entirely blue text, where Ted talks about how he is unable to sleep and is experiencing both auditory and visual hallucinations. With the end of the entry reading, many of you don't agree with my decisions to pursue this cave. I know this from the messages I have received. I am afraid I don't have a choice. If I am ever to experience restful slumber, I must return. If I am ever to walk the halls of my own home in peace, I must return. If I am ever to exit the overworld and enter the subterranean world of a cave, I must now return. I no longer feel that I have a choice. I must return. I will conquer this cave. Then, I will return and update this website immediately. I expect to be home later tonight, or tomorrow at the latest. See all of you soon, with a lot of answers. Love, Ted. The website was never updated again. Creepypasta would go on to inspire many internet horror stories, such as The Slenderman, which began in June 2009 on the Something Awful forums, when a poster asked for ideas for modern ways to terrify people. Responses included these images, which spawned the infamous Slenderman, referred to as the Operator, in the 2009 web series Marble Hornets, published under the premise of the footage being discovered by the friend of a student filmmaker who intended to burn the tapes before giving them away and making the poster promise to never mention them again. Entries on the Marble Hornets YouTube channel could be a couple of minutes or a couple of seconds long. As the poster says, they only upload if they find anything. Entry number 1 is only 47 seconds long, but includes our first look at our major antagonist, and now famous creepypasta. Creepypasta media now spans thousands of web series and text stories. Originally intended to be scary, the internet is also full of people willing to imagine the characters of the Something Awful forums as characters worthy of redemption. Slenderman is no longer just an evil creature responsible for murder and the kidnapping of children, but also the owner of a cool mansion where other creepypasta go to hang out, such as Jeff the Killer, who can be depicted as an emo anime boy with which teens on the internet can fantasize about fixing and entering a questionable relationship with. While there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, this potential belief that Slenderman was a real entity, potentially with a cool mansion with other supernatural monsters, can lead to younger, more impressionable audiences believing everything about them online, like how in 2014, two 12-year-old girls stabbed their friend 19 times in an attempt to get an invitation to Slenderman's mansion. Notably, the main perpetrator of this attack suffered from early onset childhood schizophrenia, but the creepypasta monster was at the center of the pair's shared delusions. Plenty of others, without these types of mental disorders, can believe things they see online, especially if they're young, like I was encountering the Russian sleep experiment for the first time. As a 12-year-old finding a screenshot of text on Pinterest.com with with no sense of the fact that people can lie on the internet far more effectively than I could imagine, but lacking the symptoms of psychosis, I believed it, and I was afraid. Stabbings aside, the 2010s on YouTube was the golden age of video unfiction under the aesthetic of analog horror, such as Gemini Home Entertainment, Hi, I'm Mary Mary, Username 666, Dining Room or There Is Nothing, I Feel Fantastic, and Hi Walter, I Got a New GF Today. Two notable favorites of mine are Local 58 and Petscop. In 2015, Local 58 came first, with more found footage and analog aesthetic, depicting a fictional news broadcast system in Mason County, West Virginia, with unnerving government interruptions. In the most famous installment, titled Contingency, the Local 58 channel is interrupted by an accidental broadcast from the U.S. Department of Preservation of American Dignity, instructing viewers on how to commit suicide in order to keep themselves from an unspecified enemy, which ends up being the moon, by the way. The setting of the fictional anthology covers the mysterious events happening in Mason County, West Virginia. Local 58 is a public access television in this region that started broadcasting in the late 1930s. In the lore of the channel, this TV station is being hijacked for some time, as evidenced by the ominous messages and broadcasts the station has made. Many of these ominous videos feature cryptic messages involving other planetary entities, mysterious circumstances involving the moon and stars, and multiple references to an organization known as the Thought Research Initiative. Local 58 had fewer people believing it to be reality. Petscop, on the other hand, had plenty of believers. Existing in the realm of gaming Let's Play content, the Petscop YouTube channel is narrated by a boy named Paul, who walks us through the game. In Petscop, the player is tasked with collecting numerous pets by solving puzzles across multiple levels. Gradually, the game becomes more disturbing. Over the course of its 24 videos, it slowly turns into a surreal, haunting, and often unnerving journey, filled with the themes of abuse, trauma, and obsession. There are explicit allusions to the case of Candace Newmaker. Candace was adopted at the age of 5, but was a troubled child who allegedly had issues keeping pets alive and connecting with her adoptive parents. Looking to further bond with their adoptive daughter, her parents invested in pseudoscientific rebirthing therapy, where the young girl was swaddled with fabric in order to simulate the womb and revert her back to an infant state of mind, during which Candace was verbally berated, called a quitter, and eventually suffocated to death at the age of 10 years old. In Petscop, the word Newmaker appears a number of times throughout the series. A setting of a quitter's room is present, as well as the question, do you remember being born? In addition, a few characters share names with the real-life people involved in the case. When Petscop was running from March of 2017 to September 2019, nobody could tell if it was real. Patricia Hernandez on Kotaku.com remarked, "If it's a real game, holy shit, if this is an internet story/game, then I am in awe over how elaborate it is." Real or not, fans of the series wrote over 130 pages on Google Docs, recording everything in the series, all in hopes of getting to the bottom of just what was happening. And even now, video essays on the topic still garner millions of views. This sort of unknowing is the basis of well-executed unfiction, and exactly what makes us so popular. This intrigue can make the horror aspects of unfiction more terrifying. After all, if you believe it could be real, why wouldn't you be more afraid? And why also wouldn't you be more curious? Dracula, War of the Worlds, Ted's Caving Page, Blair Witch, and more of these projects have made the observer ask that question, is it real? Which inspires audiences to follow along closer than they would if they were watching a normal YouTube Let's Play or listening to the news. Unfiction not only entertains, but also engages audiences in a unique manner, fostering a collective sense of suspense and curiosity. It's only when there aren't any questions asked that there's an issue. Posts online can make 12-year-old Atlas believe that the Russians did in fact lock people in a box and keep them awake until they went crazy, or led other 12-year-olds to attempted murder. Especially with the rise of AI-generated content, deepfakes, and altered screenshots that are easy to miss upon a cursory glance, when viewed by those less internet savvy, it's important to take a deeper look at information online. Social media or other internet posts can spread misinformation far quicker than used to be possible. Incorrect interpretations of scientific articles can be posted once and circulated incredibly fast, polarizing the opinions of those who happen to encounter it, as well as escalating fear and panic, especially in regard to the information surrounding healthcare, as seen with the anti-vaxxer surge during the COVID-19 pandemic. Facebook posts about the vaccine turning people gay, giving them autism, or even transing their gender just might meet the requirements for a delusion-fueled creepypasta. It is now that we return to Orson Welles. While it's true that the War of the Worlds did gain some confusion and possibly panicked listeners, the claims of nationwide hysteria and terror were greatly exaggerated. Newspaper headlines such as, "Radio Fake Scares Nation," "Fake Radio War Stirs Terror Through U.S.," and "Terror by Radio" even appearing in a New York Times editorial weren't exactly the most realistic, but they were good for getting readers interested. They made it seem that the majority of people were ready to fight the alien invaders through misleading wording, almost like what I did at the beginning of this essay. But no one was actually hospitalized for any reasons according to law enforcement and hospital documentation, especially not for any cases of suicide as the result of a radio play. Years later, after the original broadcast, Welles claimed that the radio station had always hoped to fool some of their listeners in order to teach them a lesson about not believing what they heard over the radio, though those involved in the production deny this. When done well, this genre of internet storytelling can be amazing. It allows for people to test the bounds of suspension of disbelief, experiment creating things online with a low budget, but it can also blur the lines between fiction and reality, for better or worse, which teaches us an important lesson. We have to question the authenticity of things presented on the internet, especially when Russians or tall faceless men are involved.